Welcome to the second video, and in this video we're going to replay the workload that was captured on the source system in the first video. So we have a new system called TargetDB, and this is running a copy of the source database that we've set up basically using data pump to export from the source and then import into the target. The target system is larger in terms of memory and CPU to try and simulate a fictional upgrade. So we could imagine that we may be using real application testing to see how a workload will replay on a particular environment or a particular configuration. Because this is a larger VM, what we hope to see is that the workload that we captured will actually run faster on this, given more processing power than on the source system. We can see that the host is called TargetDB, and it is actually running a database called TargetDB. Within TargetDB, we have a pluggable database called TargetDB PDB, and this is where the Swingbench schema has been imported, and this is where we're going to run the replay from. I have some custom scripts here, which we will go through to set up and then initiate the replay. So the first script literally is just a one line, and it's basically now using the DBMS workload replay package. And the first thing we do is we need to process the capture files that were created via the capture run. So again, we need to basically point it to a directory, and this directory is going to point to a directory on the file system where we've copied the capture files from the previous capture to. So in the previous capture on video 1, at the end, we saw that those files were held under home Oracle shared capture in our environment. So we've taken those contents and we've now basically moved them to a directory on the target system, and we're going to use a directory structure to point to them. So it's going to know where to pick up the capture files to process them, and we have to decide what type of synchronization we're going to use. Are we going to synchronize via time, or are we going to synchronize via SCN? So we're going to synchronize via SCN. And as explained in the first video, Swingbench uses a lot of PL SQL. So again, for the replay, we're going to have PL SQL mode extended. So let's run that. And what this is going to do is it's going to basically look at the workload capture found in the directory we pointed to, and it's going to create new workload replay specific metadata files that are required to replay that given workload capture. So it's only going to create new files. It's not going to modify any files that were originally created during the capture. Therefore, this procedure can be run multiple times on the same capture directory, such as when the procedure encounters unexpected errors or is cancelled by the user. So the first thing I need to do is connect to the pluggable database we're going to run this as. And now we can run that first script. So this is now looking at the capture files and processing them. So that's completed successfully. So we can now move on to the next script that I've set up. So this is where we initialize the replay. So here again, we're using the DBMS workload replay package to initialize it. We're going to give the replay a name. So here we're going to call it replay SOE. We're going to point it to the directory where the replay files are, which is obviously the same as the process capture procedure. And again, we're telling it that it's PL SQL mode extended. So let's run that. So what this is doing is it's basically initializing the system into replay mode, and it's going to load data into the replay system that is required before we can actually prepare the replay. So that's run through and that's successful. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at a view to look at the current mappings. So you can obviously imagine a situation where the usernames are different between the system and the target, and also, you know, the host names or the database names are different. So we can use the view DBA workload connection map to view current connections. Now, currently for replay, the connections are set to null, and you can set them up, which we'll do in the next step. So here we can see our replay connection is 1, and we've got our kind of source IP address, and then the service name is the source name, which this was where we captured the workload from. But we can use the remap connection procedure to remap those connections. So we want to take connection ID, which is 1, and we want to basically make sure the replay connection, and we can just point it to a TNS alias, or we can actually put in the full connection string if wanted. In our case, we obviously want it to replay on the target DB PDB. So connection ID is going to be 1. And that remapping has happened. And we can just recheck our connection map. And we can see now for connection 1, it's mapped for target DB PDB. So now that we've remapped the connection, and again, this is very basic, so you can remap users as well, and all sorts of other things, but this is just a very bare bones example. So now we've remapped, we can now look at preparing the replay. So we can execute the DBMS workload replay dot prepare replay, and this is basically just preparing the replay ready to actually be replayed. And again, we're pointing out that the synchronization mode for this replay is going to be SCN. Which is now prepared. So with the replay, we actually use separate clients, separate programs called WRC, and these are workload replay clients, which will actually be used to generate the load against the database. Now, this is, as I said, very basic. We're just going to use one client to replay this load, but there is a function called calibrate within the DBMS workload replay package that you can actually specify, which will then look at the capture files, and it will then tell you how many replay clients you actually need to start to generate the load. That's out of the scope of this video to show, really, but it's just another procedure call. Now, you could have these clients on separate machines. They don't have to be running on the database server itself, but for us, just simple, we'll run it on the database server itself, so that so we can see the WRC command is just part of the Oracle home. we pass it in the user credentials and the database we want it to connect to, and we then pass it also the replay directory that it's going to pick up the prepared replay files from. So we run this as a shell script. And we can see that we've started the client, it's connected to the database, and it's now just waiting to start the replay. So the next step we need to do is actually start the replay. And that's very simple. We can just issue start replay. When we start the replay on the database side, you'll see that the client will then actually start. So we can see that the procedure is successfully completed, and we can see now that the replay client 1 has actually started. So now the replay is actually taking place. So like the capture, we can also get, so we can get a capture status. We can also get a replay status as the data is being replayed. And we get that from this view here, DBA workload replays. So we can see connection 1, replay 1 rather, ID 1, which we named replay SOE, is in progress. So we can keep coming back and checking this, and it will tell us how how far the replay is. So we can see the client has finished. And if we look at our view as well, we can see the replay is now marked as completed. So now that the replay has completed, we can generate a replay report. Again, we have the choice of whether we have HTML or text. For this example, we're just going to use text. So let's run that. So our replay ID is 1 in this example, and it generates the report for us. So if we go up and we look from the top of the report, it shows us the database name that the replay was replayed against. It shows us the version. It shows us the replay name we picked and the status. So now we're looking at the replay versus the capture. So these are just the names that we gave for the replay and the capture. We can see that both completed. We can see the source database names where they ran from and their versions. We can see the start time of the replay and the end time of the replay, as we can see the start time of the capture and the end time of the capture. So we can see that the replay on the more powerful system actually ran in just under 11 minutes, while the capture took 15 minutes to run. We can see that the PL SQL mode was extended, and then we can move down and start to look at the replay options. So our synchronization was SCN, not time, and our connect time was 100%. So here we've got some other parameters about where we can change the think times. We didn't bother doing this. These are all just the default values, and we can see the number of replay clients that were used. Obviously, we just used the one, and we can see that it completed. So in terms of database time, or DB time, rather than wall clock time, we can see the replay took only 16 minutes of database time to replay the same workload that took 37 minutes of database time on the source system. And again, for the PL SQL database time on the capture, almost 30 minutes worth of database time on the PL SQL. Now, the exact same workload that was being run on the replay took only 12 minutes. So we can see that the more powerful system does produce better results for us. And here we can see the user calls. So we need to compare these, that they're the same, because it's obviously from the replay and the capture, along with the PL SQL user calls, PL SQL subcalls, and we can see that they are the same. We can see the average active sessions is less on the replay on the target system, because obviously it's more powerful. We can see the capture files and the finished replay sessions. Now we start to look at the divergence. And here we can see you don't want some divergence, especially around selects is okay, but you don't want to see a large amount of divergence. You really want this to kind of be as close as possible to the capture. So we can see we've had no failures, no errors, no new errors. We didn't have DMLs with different number of rows modified. We just had 12 selects that actually had a different number of rows fetched. That was the only difference between the two, between the source capture and the actual replay. So we go on then, and we can now start to see the workload profile. We can see the total wait time for CPU, for networking, for the log file sync, and other waits that the replay had. We can see the top SQL events and how long they waited and what they waited for. And we can see the top service modules as well. We can see the top sessions with the top events. And then we can see progressive commits used for synchronization, because we were synchronizing on SCN. So we can see the instance ID, the commit SCN, the number of commits, and the delta. We can see the fastest replay sessions. Obviously, this is all coming from the same replay client. So from this, it's easy to see very quickly the difference between the capture and the replay. And this is just the replay report. What we can also do is then maybe make changes on the target system. Maybe it was slower than the capture. We might want to make some changes, and we could actually rerun the replay after we've made a change to the system. Obviously, you have to pre-prepare the replay, and then we can run the compare period report, where we can actually compare between two replays of the same capture and see the divergence and the differences between them, to make sure that we are moving in the correct path. So hopefully this video has shown how easy it is to run a simple replay from a capture, and how the reporting can actually really very quickly show you kind of the gains or regressions you get from exactly the same workload running on the target database. This is just an introduction into real application testing, and obviously you would need to look at the documentation for the full kind of functionality and features that real application testing can offer and bring to your testing portfolio of products to help you. Thank you for your time in watching.